All right, guys. Welcome to another edition of our Technology Wisdom webinar series brought to you by the team here at Sundog. My name is Josh Plaza. I am the marketing manager here at Sundog.
Hi, I'm Josh Halpern Gibbons, NOC Chief at Sundog.
So today we're going to be talking about tips and tricks to Microsoft Outlook. But before we get started though, I just want to encourage everyone to check out our YouTube channel. You'll find tons of great videos on a wide variety of tech tips and important information to help your organization become stronger. Be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. If you're watching on YouTube after the fact, you'll see that bell icon. You'll get notified every time we post another cool video. If you guys have any questions, please make sure to hit that Q&A box. And we will be answering those questions live, or you can feel free to reach out to us at yourteam@sundogit.com, or you can call us at 815-991-2400. Okay, Josh, that's it. Show's all yours.
All right, thanks. I'm going to share my screen here and then just have everybody confirm they can see and hear what I'm up to. Let's see, make sure I get the right one. All right, yeah, if you can put something in the chat, just let me know you can see and hear me. That would be great before we go too far. Seeming good. All right, cool. So we have got all sorts of stuff to talk about today. We're going to stick to Outlook, but I'm going to start with just some productivity stuff that can hopefully help you save some of your time from just dealing with email, move on to other things. One of the ones that, maybe is going to be advanced for some of you, maybe not for others, that I like to use every day to keep my things under control are mail rules. So let's see here. When you are working with whatever you've got, you get a ton of email, whether it's stuff you want or not, stuff you need or don't. In Outlook, you can come in and you can create a rule that will take care of it for you to some extent. I'm going to go through a basic one, and then we're going to do a little more advanced. Sky's the limit, or really your patience for setting one up is probably the practical limit on making a mail rule here. So for example, I get a lot of email from Cohen, and I want to keep that organized. But instead of coming in and moving all those messages around every day, taking that time to spend mental energy on, hey, I did that thing or I didn't, I want to get it into the right folder so I know I've addressed it or not. I tend to sort things out. Every organization method is going to be different, and that's fine. You can make a rule for whatever works for you. But for me, I'm going to take all my messages from Cohen, let's say, or whoever that person is on your end. We're going to just right click on it and go in and create a rule. This is a really basic one where I'm just sorting it. So I'm going to say, always move messages from Cohen Barnes. And it's just going to ask me, where do I want to put it? So I've got my folder structure. He is not in there. He is up in admin. And I've got a folder for Cohen. So I'm just going to select that and say, okay, what this is going to do is the rule that I've created is going to identify messages coming from Cohen, and it's going to automatically take them and put them into a folder that I've made for him. You can do this for anything. A lot of the reasons you might do this would be, let's say you have, so we can see right there, it actually ran. It took that message. It has moved it over to my folder for Cohen, and here it is up at the top. In the future, if a message came through from Cohen and it wanted to sort it for me, I don't have to do anything anymore. It's going to take that message. It's going to see the rule that I've created, and it's going to put it into the appropriate folder. That lets you sort those things from people, or you have that vendor or that client or whatever kind of person or organization you might want to filter by. That's a really fast and easy way to sort those without having to touch them all by hand. You have to watch out if you are using your inbox as a way to kind of keep track of what you have and haven't done, because it's going to start to look kind of like mine, where you end up having all of these different folders with their unread items kind of broken out. So you do have to scan a bit more if you're doing this in depth. But for just one or two, It's pretty easy to handle. It's pretty easy to start experimenting with. The other thing you can do is, let's say you have something maybe a little more complex. You want to kind of make that next move into what a rule can do. And this may be a bit much, but it at least lets you start to think about there are more things you can do with Outlook doing the work for you. But if you're not aware of it, you don't start to question whether or not Outlook can do the work instead of handing all the work for you to do. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click on a message. I'm going to go to rules. This time, instead of just moving one, in this case, I could do the same basic thing. I get a lot of stuff from ConnectWise. It's a program we use internally. I want to get a little more specific. I'm going to create a rule here. And when this happens, it brings up a menu box. And this is where it starts to get intimidating because, again, the sky's the limit, but of course, it's going to come down to how frustrated you get when you try to go through and make it do the thing you want to do. For me, maybe it's a little more than you, but don't overestimate how comfortable I am coming in making a rule either. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to look and see what I've got here. There's some stuff here where you could filter out a particular subject. So if you have a report that comes through, but maybe it doesn't always come through from the same person. You have one person who fills in as a backup, you have a rotation, but the report is always the same. You could filter by that subject instead of who is sending it. You could choose who it's going to if you wanted. If you have groups that you're a part of, mail groups, and you want to make sure that when it goes to a particular group that it's getting filtered a certain way. Most of the time that might not be something you're doing, but it does happen often enough. I'm going to actually click on advanced options here, and there's going to be a ton of stuff, and we're going to ignore most of it. So you don't have to come in here and look at everything and think you have to worry about everything that's on here. It just gives you a million options. We're going to create a slightly more advanced one. So I get a lot of email, and I'm not always the point person on that email. I've been around long enough. Most of you have worked with me at some point. I've probably touched something that I didn't complete for you, but when I make that handoff to Cohen or Dale or some other engineer on our service team, and they pick it up and run with it, but I'm still involved in the communication just to make sure that, hey, I put my name on it and I want to make sure that this thing gets accomplished. Be sure you CC me on that message, please. I'm going to make sure that I'm getting messages where I am not the person who has to reply kind of filtered off. That way you can, have a place for stuff that you need to be aware of, but doesn't have to take up a lot of your mental energy for that particular day. So in this case, I'm going to create a rule, and then I'm going to scroll down for this one here that says, I want ones where my name is, where my name is in the CC box. You could also go where my name is not in the to box. Maybe someone decides to blind carbon copy you. There are a lot of different ways you could handle it. This is where we start to get into the really intimidating part of rules. And I'm going to cut us off before we go a whole lot further. We're just going to pick this one. My name is not in the to box. So a message comes in from Cohen. It goes around the whole office. It is not something I have to reply to necessarily. It's maybe just some kind of memo to the office or a memo to my team in particular, and he wants me to know that he sent it out. I'm just going to check that box. My name is not in the to field, but it came to me, so I know this one's probably not as important as the others. If I wanted to, I could add a category to it. We'll talk about categories here a little bit more too, but a category is another way you can sort your email. For any of these options where you pick them and they have the blue underlined words, you get to fill in another part there. So let's say we're going to pick the sender, and I'm going to remove this. I'm going to try to untangle what I'm tangling up right now. I'm not going to bother with the sender for my full example, but in this case, let's say I did set the rule and it was set for coming from ConnectWise, but I wanted it to be someone else. I made a mistake. It should actually be stuff that I'm doing from Cohen instead. I'm going to get Cohen in there and remove that ConnectWise and make my correction. Just clicking on these links is the important part. Not that we're doing who it's from, but when you click on one of these, it's going to bring up a field that lets you pick from those kind of building blocks of what's already in Outlook. That way you don't have to know any way to write it out in a particular format. You don't have to learn any coding. You just have to know who the person is. Maybe you'll want to verify that you have the right address. In this case, I'm sorting a message from a vendor. They might email me from a bunch of different addresses, so it might behoove me to make sure it's the right one for this particular thing I want to do. I'm going to remove this from my example and try to get myself back on track here. So we're going to pick a category. These are messages coming in. They are not specifically for me, and I want to categorize that. So I'm going to go to my categories list, and you can see here, you might only have the defaults. You might have more. Either way is fine. I'm going to pick a category. And we'll talk a little more about these once I wrap up this rule, but I'm going to pick a category and we're going to call it pretty much good. This rule right now is saying the message comes in. Apply this rule after the message arrives. Probably can't apply the rule before it arrives. So it comes in, it checks to see if it is to me or my name is somewhere else. And if it is somewhere else, it assigns this category. And that's about it. You can click through next if you want. I'm not going to talk about all these because my goal is not to get you to understand how much every possible combination can do, just that there are a lot of options, and even some really basic rules can help clean things up without you having to sit there and deliberate over, what do I do? Even if it's a routine thing, I filter dozens and dozens of email every day. If I can get that down to maybe just 1 or 2 dozen, it doesn't seem like much, but an extra 15 or 20 minutes, there are a lot of days where that makes a big difference for me, even if it's just being able to wrap something up and, not feel so panicky about it. So you can go through next and it will tell you it doesn't have an action to be taken in this case. I didn't say what I want to do with it. So let me go back and fix that. I'm not going to continue. It's going to apply the category, but I did not send it to a folder. Let's see. Oh, yeah, so I can forward it. Sorry. This is the condition. What do you want to check? This is where it's telling me I want to check whether or not I'm being addressed or CC'd. And then over here, what do I want to do with it? So I can mark it as important. I can assign the category. I can move it to a folder. That's what I'm going to do in this case, just as a general example. So again, it gives me that underline. It says specified. I have to go specify which folder. We're just going to pick the one out here at the top as an example. We're going to put it in admin and say OK. And then if there are any exceptions, you can create them. We're trying to keep the advanced example kind of basic, so we're not going to go into that. These are the kinds of things where if you do get into this and you're trying to make something work and you have trouble, we do have a service team here to help you out with specifics. If you have any questions, we can try and cover them in the webinar also, but for right now, I'm going to keep it as general as I can and just proceed. Give the rule a name, something that makes sense to you, not to me directly, is what I'm going to call it. I'm going to say whether or not I want to run it. You can choose to apply it to everything you already have. So you can use this to sort things going forward. It's also something that is a way you could potentially clean up an inbox or a folder you already have. You can create the rule, run it against your existing messages, and then it will actually filter what you already have there. The one caution I would make there is if you do that and you didn't have the rule quite right on the first go around, you might send a lot of stuff somewhere you don't want it to go. So maybe just give it a look first. You can tell it whether or not to turn it on or off, and then we'll say good. It does remind you, this is only happening when Outlook is running. This doesn't happen if you left your computer on overnight. So let's say you have your email coming through on your phone and you have some email coming through to Outlook, but your Outlook isn't in the office running, then it's not gonna do anything until you get back into the office and turn your computer back on in the morning. So we're gonna say okay, and it saves it and it does whatever it's gonna do. In this case, I didn't actually set up a functioning one because I don't think I have any CC'd email except in my history. But it would grab that email, it would put it in here. I don't have anything in there. It did not work. And it would assign a category, which looks like this over here on the side. We'll talk about those categories real quick before I totally forget them. It's just a way for you to sort through your email. You can apply them for all sorts of reasons. You can use them in the rules if you want. They also show up in search. It's just kind of a way to flag things. So you can have any number of categories. If you haven't set them up, your defaults in Outlook are going to look a little different than mine. I use mine for tracking all sorts of different things. But you can either come in and use the existing ones the way they are, or click the All Categories button. It will bring you to a list, and you can do whatever you want at this point. You can change the color of them by clicking on this button. You can rename them if you would like to rename them. It'll just bring it up, a simple field to edit the text in. It will let you add more if you need more than the half dozen it starts with. And then once you have them, you can, again, right click and categorize things quickly like this. You can get them into those rules and you can search for them. So in search here, let's talk about that. In search, you can do all sorts of things. I like to think I have a pretty good memory, but especially over the past year or two, I've learned that's not as true as it once was, maybe. And so I rely a lot on things like finding the link to get into the Outlook Productivity webinar by searching through Outlook. This is something I'm doing all the time. And you can see I've got my search history here. So I'm looking for all sorts of different things. In this case, I'm going to look for a message about, let's say, webinars. I'm going to look for this one in particular. I'm actually going to look for one I've categorized. I've got plenty of webinar emails. And when I'm looking right now, the search bar is telling me I'm looking at my current mailbox. When you're looking on your end, I believe this is the default. It's going to show you the current mailbox, and you can change this. I think for most people, you probably use your own mailbox, and that's it. And you're pretty much just looking through your own messages. Some people might be members of a shared mailbox. They may have other special circumstances where they have access to additional mailboxes, where one of the common ones we see is somebody takes leave for whatever reason they may have, and temporarily their mailbox becomes accessible to someone else who's filling in for them while they're on leave. And when that happens, you probably won't be familiar with what's going on in their email, and you may need to go search for something. You can change where you're looking by changing this current mailbox item. So you can look in just a specific folder if you want to get more restrictive. You know it's a webinar email, but also you receive hundreds of them, and you move them all to a particular webinars folder. So you go to your webinars folder. You just want to search in there. In this case, I'm searching in my inbox. You can see my search list has shrunk dramatically from when I look in my current mailbox. This scroll bar is significant once I search the whole mailbox, and it just gets bigger the longer I go down. So the task of finding the thing I want doesn't get a whole lot easier just because I've changed my own mailbox. For the current folder, I could search the one I'm in and anything below it. So the example there would be like if I'm looking at a service email. I group by our teams on my email. I've got the service team, and let's say I'm looking for something that I've worked on with one of the engineers, but I don't remember which one. Maybe I would want to come in and search all these subfolders. So it'll show me everything. It will show me results from everybody who's in this service folder that I've created. So I'm going to go back again. And I'm going to go to current mailbox just to set it back to the default. Getting back to my example of maybe you're in that shared mailbox, or you have someone who's covering somebody else on leave, whatever the situation you might have where you have more than one mailbox, you can search all of the mailboxes if you would like. Or maybe if you're searching for something you're not sure is an email, you might search all Outlook items. Once you get towards the bottom of this menu, probably you're starting to feel a little desperate for something. You can't remember exactly what it was. These are maybe not as common. So the current mailbox default, it's going to cover most things in my experience. You can then run your search. I'm going to search webinar. And it returns all this stuff. And then across the top, you get a bunch of buttons. So you can further refine what you're looking for. You start to remember a little bit of detail. A lot of what we just looked at is also available in the menu here. But you can run your whole search. And if you're pretty confident, this one at the top it's sort of like if you've ever used I'm feeling lucky on Google. You punch it in, it'll just turn up what it finds. And you don't have to go too far. But for me, I know I had this webinar message. I'm not sure about too much. I just remember sorting it. I remember putting it in my meetings category, let's say. So I'm going to search again, and there we go. I can find all the information that I have for everything that says webinar that matches that category. That's one of the ways that categories can be particularly helpful. It's kind of like the mark your message as important flag, or the follow-up flag. I guess they don't have the mark is important is still there, but it's not quite as prevalent as it once was, as they've added some of these other things over the years. Important still has its place, and you could certainly search for that if you felt that was relevant here. But the categories just let you have more flexibility. They let you get more creative and do a lot more with that. So for the search, for me, I'm going to do really quick one more and see if I can find webinar. I'm just going to search it out to all mailboxes, and I know I have one other mailbox attached here. And I just want to see if it works. You can see how much slower it's going. You can see it reloading. It is probably going through, when you send in a service request, that comes through to a mailbox on our side. And the mailbox talks to our software and it creates a service ticket on our end. Sometimes the software that does all that conversion work for us, it just decides to stop working. Which is really nice for about 20 minutes when it seems like things have really calmed down and gotten super quiet. And then we realize that nobody we're trying to talk to is saying anything to us. And then I go check this mailbox and fix it. But in here, what's happening is it's showing me all the results from both of those locations. So I'm not going to scroll down too far, but you can see my scroll bar it's got a tiny little button here. It's going way back. Yep, all sorts of stuff going back years and years now. So if I needed that, I would almost certainly start using some of these buttons to filter it down. Again, we kind of dipped our toe in the water and then plunged right in with that one. For the search in general, there's a ton that you can do there, but the most important thing is just to give it a try. Let's see, I'm going to get to one more thing here, I think, before Josh probably tells me I need to calm down and move on, which is up at the top, the quick access toolbar. This is another way to try to get some additional stuff that you're doing repeatedly, those repetitive tasks that you just want to have a way to speed up, make it a little easier. Up in the top corner here, you have a quick access toolbar, which lets you add and remove buttons that you are using regularly. I do a lot of keyboard shortcuts. I know I'm in the minority on that. There are things that are just easier through these shortcuts. When you use this, it's going to be different depending on the window you're in within Outlook. So right here, I'm just at the main screen. I'm looking at my email. And it's going to give me a list of options. I've got some pretty basic ones. I do occasionally force a send and receive, let's say, to refresh my email. Let's say I'm doing a lot of reply all work. And I just keep forgetting to do that. I want a button to make it easier. I can add it here. The problem is if I open this one up, I'm going to open an existing message. You can see I've still got the quick access toolbar, but it doesn't save my changes. You do have to set it in each location, and that's so that you could set different things in different places. One thing I do a lot of is I save messages as independent files. And then that way, when someone sends me something really important and I want to save it with the work I'm doing, I can just get that file and I can stick it with whatever work I'm doing, and it all stays tied together. So I'm going to come in here and there's save. The one I want isn't, well, it's already listed. I have save as listed here, but there are a lot of the same options I can add. You just check the ones you want. It'll add a button. If it turns out you're not using it anymore, you check to remove it. You uncheck to remove it. If what you're looking for is something you can do in Outlook, it probably has a button. But then again, you have to start digging in pretty deep to where it starts to get intimidating. I think if you have one thing in mind, then you can come in and try to solve that one problem. And again, if you get stuck, we have a service team who can probably point you in the right direction. Most of them are pretty friendly on the phone, I think. Don't know about that Josh guy. So here's save as. This is one, like I said, I use all the time. I'm going to add it. It's going to tell me I already have it because I do, but it lets me put it there. And then going forward, I don't have to dig through the menu, file, save as. I know that seems really easy. When you start to think about things that you are doing constantly every day, saving a few moments makes a big difference. I know that happens when you see something slow down on your end, and something that takes you 1 to 2 minutes is taking you 2.5 to 3. It piles up quickly, and this is one of those things that for me really, cuts that back down to a manageable amount. Yeah, so I am going to wrap up there. We're going to see if we have any questions from Josh here before we wrap anything up.
It looks like we had a hand up. I'm not sure if they still had something to say. Doesn't look like we have anything in the questionnaire, so I'm gonna go ahead and say we're good on that. Josh, that was awesome. To everyone that came out, don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, subscribe, and like this video if you are watching after the fact. Thanks for your time again and all the information, Josh. Guys, be sure to check in again next month to attend one of our Technology Wisdom webinar series. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much again.
Yep. Thanks, all.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.